Happy Halloween, and welcome back to Delfino Square. Last time, we got this town all decorated up for Halloween, and today I want to add some finishing touches. As much as I decorated, I never actually got to this market area at all, so let's fix that. I went ahead and got rid of this mud section, and just filled it in by selecting the edges on either side and pressing F. I want to make this area look just as good as the others, but also kinda unique. And while looking at these buildings, I noticed that the water doesn't feel spooky enough. I tried making it more of a greenish color, but that wasn't really working. So I put down a fog volume, hovering just over the water, and made it the same color. But you can't really see the fog, so I changed the water back to the original blue, and now I think we've got some pretty cool, spooky looking water. Then I trick-or-treated Model's Resource for some candy. I found this cool looking wagon thing from Mario Party 8, as well as a simple model of a piece of candy from Animal Crossing New Leaf. I also had downloaded this model of a bat last episode, which is actually a weapon from Miitopia. This should make a good decoration. I'll just leave it floating over there until I figure out what to do with it. But we already have a few signs decorating the vegetable stands, so let's update those. My first idea was to use these paintings from the Twisted Mansion track, so I put them over the Delfino Square signs on the texture and gave it an export. Well, that looks stupid. Turns out putting paintings in vegetables isn't something people really do. So instead, I'll keep this sign part and just modify it a little bit. And for the other square, I'll go ahead and bring in the wanted poster from Luigi's Mansion 3. So I updated that, and it looks better, but weird. Because the normal map is still the one that I generated based on the old texture. So for the sign, I just painted a flat area in the middle. And for the poster, that had its own normal map, which I can bring into this texture. Now that we have that dealt with, let's throw all those gross, healthy vegetables out and get some candy in here. I recolored the texture to make it look a bit more festive, and made a few different versions. Then I took the preview image from Model's Resource and recolored that. Recoloring an image like this is just separating different parts that should be different colors and applying overlay effects until it looks right. Now I'll open the vegetable texture image and start updating it. I want to do the same thing that they did with the vegetables to make this texture, but with candy. Granted, it looks like they actually used 3D renders, but I'm not feeling like doing all that right now, so we'll see how this turns out. Once I had this background finished, I duplicated it and recolored it purple, then again in green. I was worried this wouldn't map on very well since it has lots of bleed over between sections. And yeah, that's what happened. Either way I do this, I'm gonna have to do lots of UV unwrapping to fix the discrepancy. So I just went ahead and didn't use the texture format whatsoever, which of course means I need to go around and re-unwrap each box of candy. The difference between me and an actual professional is that professionals don't do this. I don't know what they do instead, but I'm certain they don't do this. Then I generated a normal map for the candy on Normal Map Online, which looked awful. So I tried using the water normal map instead, and that worked great actually. Now I can bring in the actual 3D model of the candy and apply the Halloween texture. Hopefully this looks more like candy with a few more of these 3D ones sitting on top. And you know what? No, it doesn't. From most angles and distances, this looks like boxes of multicolored watermelons, or pumpkins, or spiders, or almost anything but candy. But instead of redoing all of that, I'm just gonna see what I can do to make it look better. Mostly messing with the surrounding lighting and material settings on the candy. Yeah, that's definitely better. Now that we've improved the candy up to borderline subpar, we can duplicate, move, and adjust the candy into each bin, one color at a time. I gave up about halfway through the green candies, and noticed the cloth roof things look like they could use a normal map. Nice. So I carried on duplicating candy around, and eventually had it all placed. Now that the tedious part's over, I can duplicate and adjust each individual light over each stall by hand for half an hour. Now I can finally start placing some of those decorations. They each kinda have their own spots that they can be. It's really fun figuring out where they work and where they don't work. The jack-o'-lanterns work pretty much everywhere, so I had to exercise a little bit of restraint with them. Then I went ahead and fine-tuned some of the building textures and set down a few hundred more jack-o'-lanterns. I also put some doors on this building, which are kind of an iconic feature of buildings, come to think of it. A few more jack-o'-lanterns, and let's see if this wagon thing won't be just what we need to make this grassy area feel less empty. I went to start overhauling it when I accidentally selected one of the polygons of a shadow. Those don't usually have polygons, so I deleted the fake shadow and got to work. It's got the candy part going already, but it's gotta be darker and dingier. Yeah. I made a black to transparent gradient in Photoshop and put that on an indented plane to make it look super dark inside. It looks kinda weird in the viewport, but it'll look awesome in renders. After that, I went around giving a means of entrance to a bunch of buildings that for some reason didn't have one. I also adjusted the unwrapping on the shop covers to be less stretched and more consistent. Then I put some spider webs and stuff like that over a bunch of the stalls that still felt a little bit empty or undecorated. This is probably the best part of a project like this. Having everything set up and going around using all of your resources and effects to make the whole thing come together. I even headed over across the drawbridge to the tree area and made it look a bit nicer too, since I never really added any decorations here previously. I set up a few of those carts and gave them their own color schemes so they don't look like duplicates. Then I got a model of a discarded cup from Kirby and the Forgotten Land and set a couple of those on the ground, as well as a little bit of overgrown grass. Something else I wanted to do was add a sort of sewer tunnel drain entrance grate system pipe tube wall thing, so I extruded out a basic tunnel and put the gray brick texture on it and unwrapped it. Then I duplicated this beam and used it to create a nicer looking entrance. Yeah, that's not too bad. Then I duplicated this beam and set it in place and made an array out of it to create a metal grate. Now all it's missing is that classic green glow that any respectable inner city underground network of tunnels is supposed to have. I also bent the metal bars apart to make it look a little more ominous and interesting, like something had forcibly escaped. Maybe a strong fish or something. Then I put a plane down, which I can use the green glowy material on to make it look like there's some kind of green chemicals flowing out. I made a transparent green gradient for this. That way, the Mountain Dew kind of fades off into the water, which again looks pretty bad in the viewport, but looks a lot better when rendered. Now it's time to set up some lighting with those magic boxes. I duplicated and rescaled one of them for the market area and baked the lighting, which looks very nice overall, but these windows are way too bright. So I separated those kinds of windows by selecting them on the texture, and I made a new material for those which have half as much emission. Then I rebaked and got better results. This is pretty much done now, but before rendering any footage, I like to get a few still renders to iron out any little imperfections or spot potential improvements, like remembering to have the lighting volume that I just set up be visible while rendering, or thinning out the fog volume over the water. I also noticed that the lighting on these windows looks terrible, and cranking up resolutions didn't seem to help. So instead, I put orange point lights in front of each window and made all of them brighter at the same time by holding Alt while turning up the brightness. This looks a lot better, and this is a really cool angle for a render, but the moon looks like a lased chip, so let's make it foggier or glowier or something. I duplicated and scaled up the moon and turned it into a fog volume, which I should be able to use as kind of a fake glow effect that should work well at any angle. And I made another volume that was a bit thinner and bigger, and that actually works pretty well. Well, I think that's good. Here's Delfino Square decorated a little bit more for Halloween. Well, that's all for this time. I've really enjoyed revisiting this track and updating it while also working on my other series. I could definitely see myself doing more Mario Kart tracks in the future, in one way or another. I'm not entirely sure about doing any more modding, but this kind of visual stuff is still lots of fun for me. Anyways, I'll talk to you later. Thanks.